Well, welcome to the show. Tonight our guest is Dr. Kate Sawyer. She works in the Mayo Clinic. So Kate, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So could you tell us a little bit about diabetes?
Sure. So diabetes really comes down to two main things, insulin and glucose. And we get glucose when we eat. And what the insulin does is our pancreas produces the insulin, which sort of unlocks our cells to allow the glucose in so that it can be used for energy. Now, if someone has type 1 diabetes, then their pancreas doesn't produce any insulin at all. And if someone has type 2 diabetes, then their insulin doesn't connect with the cell and it doesn't allow the glucose to enter.
So Kate, how do people get diabetes?
Well, type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes are acquired different ways. Now, type 1 diabetes has a lot to do with genetics, and you have to have risk factors from both of your parents. Now, many people who have both risk factors from both of your parents don't get type 1 diabetes, as there are several things that may trigger it. Now, type 2 diabetes has a lot more to do with diet and exercise, but there are other factors involved.
That's very interesting. So do only adults get diabetes?
Not at all. Although we see a greater number of adults with type 2 diabetes, there are also a large number of children who have type 2 diabetes.
Wow. So how common actually is diabetes?
Well, currently in America there are 23.6 million people who have diabetes.
So what are some usual symptoms of diabetes?
Well, some typical symptoms that most people experience are frequent urination, unusual thirst, extreme hunger, extreme fatigue, a numbness or tingling sensation in the hands or feet, cuts and bruises that are slow to heal, and unusual weight loss.
So how do people with diabetes stay healthy?
Well, people with type 1 diabetes often carry an insulin pump and will take insulin injections since their body doesn't produce their own. They also have to constantly monitor their blood sugar to make sure it's not too low or too high. People with type 2 diabetes, however, have to monitor what they eat and how much they exercise in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And all of these people are trying to maintain homeostasis within their bodies.
So Dr. Sawyer, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hello everyone. Our second guest today talking about diabetes is Yasmine.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
So Yasmine, can you tell me how you found out you had diabetes?
Yeah, when I found out I had diabetes, I was about 12 years old, and my mom began to get really concerned because I was normally really active and I loved to play sports and everything, and I began to lose that interest in that because I was always tired. I was constantly not wanting to do sports because of fatigue, and then I also had just a dramatic weight loss, and my mom got really concerned, so she brought me into the doctor, and then he told me I should take the glucose tolerance test.
So what is the glucose tolerance test?
Oh yeah, the glucose tolerance test is just where the doctors, they gave me something to drink that was very high in glucose, which means that's high in sugar, and then they wanted to test how much glucose was in my blood over a set period of time. The doctor came back with the results, and he said that my blood sugar level got very high and stayed high, which meant that I had type 1 diabetes.
So what was your reaction when you found out you had type 1 diabetes?
I was really scared. I just didn't really know what it was at the time either because I was so young, and I just thought that I was dying, the world was ending.
Well, we're all very glad that's not the case. So since you've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, what are some challenges you faced?
Well, I have like those emotional challenges, just feeling different than other kids, having to take insulin injections and things like that. Make me feel a little bit out there, but I've learned to cope with it. And some physical changes that I deal with are my foot.
What about your foot?
Oh, well, I have dry gangrene. Yeah, my foot. I actually have dry gangrene, which means that the skin tissue in my foot is actually dying. And there's a lot of maintenance that goes into this. I have to work really hard on taking care of the smell because it has a really bad smell.
Can we get a close up on your foot?
Go for it.
Wow, I was not expecting that. That's very severe. So have there been any other complications because of this?
No, thankfully this is the only one that I'm currently dealing with.
Well, thankfully. So we're very thankful that you could come on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Hi, so this is going to be the at-home segment of the Diabetes Show,
And Kate really just wanted me to get across to you some of the healthy food options that diabetics should have, and also some unhealthy food options that we should stay away from. And I also wanted to get into the importance of hypoglycemic and hyperglycemic. So some of the healthy food options that diabetics, especially diabetics, should have is foods like celery and apples and tomatoes, oranges, carrots, nuts, and green beans. Green beans are awesome to have. Pretty much diabetics want to have foods that are very low in carbs and lipids. Lipids are fats. That's what lipids are, for those of you who don't know. And for example, this celery has no fat in it at all. And also, they want to have good amounts of protein in their diet, and a good source of protein would be a thing like mixed nuts. It has various nut types, and that gives you great portions of protein. And also green beans, spinach, those are low in calories, almost no fats in them, and just a great source of protein for diabetics to have. And then let's get into some unhealthy food options. So you always, especially when you're a diabetic, want to stay away from foods like these. Sugars. These lipids you do not want to eat when you're a diabetic. They're really unhealthy and could extremely increase your glucose level. So you want to stay away from candies like these. You also want to stay away from starch. So anything like biscuits and high amounts of bread, that would have a lot of starch in it. So you want to stay away from those. Also, sodas. Any kind of soda. Even if it says 0 calorie, you want to stay away from soda. That's just really bad, and it has lots of fats in it and lots of sugars. Sugar is so high in soda, you want to stay away from that. And also foods like Doritos. Doritos have trans fat, so you really want to stay away from that. They have lots of calories too, so you don't want to have that as a diabetic. And like I said, you want to have foods that have protein and are low in lipids. So let's get into the importance of food labels. It's extremely important for diabetics to know what they're eating, so they have to read the food labels to make sure they're not getting too much sugar or too little sugar even, because that can be dangerous as well. So you want to read the food labels and make sure there's no trans fat in there. Trans fat will be very bad for diabetics. And these are the types of food that would have trans fats and sugars. So like I said, the sodas, that has a lot of sugar in it, and you don't want to have that, especially as a diabetic. And then let's get to what hyperglycemic and hypoglycemic mean. So pretty much, it is very important for diabetics to have a relatively normal blood sugar level. So hypoglycemic is when the blood sugar is too low, which is dangerous for diabetics. And that's when usually type 1 diabetes, they'll take their insulin injections. And you might see diabetics prick their finger, and that's just to test how high or low their blood sugar is. And then hyperglycemic is high blood sugar level. And you want to make sure that your blood sugar isn't too high, because that's also extremely dangerous. That's when your blood sugar gets too high, that's usually because you're eating foods like these. So try to stay away from that. And then a low blood sugar would be 70 mg/dL. And that is pretty much it for the at-home segment. Thanks for joining me.